Hello and welcome to Animal Men 2 Part 2,
Take two.
2, the second redoubling of the doo-doo.
And as
we
the best we
had-
can tell, the evil noise is gone.
Yeah, we had
No,
some
I-
horrible audio
I-
issues, so we're just going to restart but try to buzz through what we did before. Hopefully it'll be better for the, So,
So we're
this-
talking about Animal Man number 9 through 16, the Grant Morrison run.
yes. And so I didn't have a whole lot on issue 9, really. Issue 9, Martian Manhunter comes and talks to Animal Man, and as they find out the JLA has a service to fix up their house because it was a supervillain attack. And also they talk about Animal Man's bizarro power problem because there was something that happened in an event that was outside of this comic that affected his powers. And they just kind of deal with that, but also you get some moments between the two of them, like Martian Manhunter looking like a giant monster to scare off his son's bullies, Animal Man's son's bullies. And
I guess
that was
one thing. I think my audio's still screwed up. Not as bad as before, but one thing you could say is this issue kind of took a look at the life of a superhero from the angle that they don't usually take, with how they set up the protection in the house with a family that happens to have a superhero in it, and what kind of conversations superheroes have when they're not out fighting crime and such, and what they maybe do for their families. And the bad sound went away. Did you mute yourself, Matt? You're muted. Yeah. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I guess that means the noise is my end.
I think so.
Ah, crap.
I don't know.
If it comes back, let me know, and I can try to majigger something real quick.
I do see a comment from 64-page special that says it's fixed. Although to me, it's slowly coming back.
Okay.
Maybe you just have to do this.
Well, I'll just,
64 special, like you, just headphones. You have. I'll plug them. Let me see if I still hear the sound. So maybe it was my fault. Or am I muted now? Can you hear me, Matt? I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Matt. Can other people hear Matt? Gore Vidal says it sounds like Animal from the Muppets drumming. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm thinking that this whole thing may be screwed. We could try it on my channel. I can't hear you. Speak again. Still can't hear you. I don't know what's going on.
There we go. That should do it.
I do hear you now.
Okay.
And you hear me?
Yes.
It's great to do this live.
Oh, yeah. Well, no choice, I guess. God damn. That means this thing's busted.
Well, you've ordered a new one, right? So
Yep.
problem soon to be solved.
Next 2 days. All right.
So why don't we just say Animal Man 9 happened?
Yeah, Animal Man
We
9
tried
happened.
to talk
Martian
about it
Manhunter.
twice.
Bullies.
Then there was Secret Origins, which I guess must have filled half of an issue. And it looked to me like Grant Morrison playing around with this idea of different continuities being different realities and the need for higher beings to somehow fix things when there's errors in the continuity change, which, you know, like in New 52, we see all these errors where that couldn't have happened when only 5 years has gone by. So he's already kind of way back in 1988 or 89, whenever this is, joking about, you know, how these errors in the continuity can screw things up in reality, the reality of comics. So the side of him that really cares about multiverses and reality is already showing, I think.
And
You still there?
yeah, I'm here, and we get a talk about Animal Man's history in print in a little blurb, but nothing's wow, that doesn't show. Nothing particularly exciting, but a rocky history for a small character, and this was kind of his first time in the limelight, was kind of what I got the takeaway.
Although at the time, in one of these Secret Origin issues, this might have felt pretty jazzy, that instead of just a vanilla retelling of the origin, he plays with the fact that Animal Man of the past and the present isn't exactly the same. So it might have seemed quite exciting to the reader of the time, possibly.
I also think it's a relatively big idea to shove into like a half a comic.
Right. Well, so I think he's just beginning to play with it, and then he comes, as we both know, he comes back to it and he tries to explore it a little better.
Right.
I'm still going on the theory that he's winging everything a bit.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
Now he has big schemes that he's following, but I think in Animal Man, it's like his first time doing an American comic book, and he's just seeing what he can get away with and throwing out ideas and seeing if they stick.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that.
So, and I never knew about this Secret Origins back in the days when I was reading Animal Man as a regular series. Probably because if I did see it on the rack, I would have just assumed, oh, it's just another one of those Secret Origins, which is these really boring reprints of old origins of Silver Age heroes.
I imagine most of them weren't so great. But yeah. But then it dovetails nicely right into the next issue, I think.
Right. And I really liked this issue quite a bit. And I liked the arc that it began. I think it was like a 3-issue arc.
Yeah.
With Hamid Ali or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman, is she called the Fox or is she called something else? I can't remember.
Vixen?
Now. Vixen, right. She's called Vixen. And they say she has animal powers similar to him, but I'm not quite sure what her animal powers are.
I think it's the same set of powers. Like she can attribute any animal ability to herself, but hers works through a talisman rather than.
Right. And I wonder if it's more limited than his. Like we don't see her fly, I don't think.
At least not here, but I think she
maybe later on she flies.
But it's pretty similar, but she seems to have a better grasp on her end of it, and she's a different character in so many ways. And
there's a very nice scene at the beginning that has a fox hunt alternating with panels of her being hunted by someone else. Mm-hmm. Hamid Ali, I assume it will turn out to be. I didn't quite figure that out for sure. You know, if I did start hitting points where I wish the illustrations were better, I wish they had more detail, more flavor to them, more atmosphere. In this issue, we have a scene in Arkham Asylum, and it's an Arkham Asylum that looks like the most generic high school or something on the inside, I thought. And it just seems really noticeable how generic of an artist this guy is when he's drawing Arkham Asylum, and it's just a bunch of blank walls and doors.
I also don't think it's I don't know. The need for them to use Arkham here was pointless. I just
Right. Well, they just wanted to bring in this crazy guy, which was Psycho Pirate for some reason.
but
But
he
the
was
guy visiting Arkham is a mathematician or something like that, or a string physics theorist.
string theorist, yeah.
And I guess he learns the name Animal Man from the Psycho Pirate. So that's the only real point to this long 4-page scene. And I think then this character is going to show up like 5 issues from now because he doesn't play a role in this particular arc.
And I feel like this was echoes from the event that, and some of the last ones, whatever they were, that Animal Man was tied to.
I'm pretty sure this string theorist is going to tie up into further plots.
He does, but the Psycho Pirate connection, because that doesn't.
Yeah. I don't know why the Psycho Pirate.
Like he hasn't been around as much before. Like I think he was
Right.
mentioned briefly once before, but only because of some connection that already happened. In here, there's a really interesting point because Vixen basically just shows up at Animal Man's house,
Right.
and so the wife's dealing with that, and supposedly Vixen's supposed to be like a supermodel looking. I didn't.
Right. She's not noticeably better looking than the wife or anyone else.
Yeah, so I don't understand that.
Yeah, and the artist doesn't even draw her like in supermodel poses, or I mean, she's just very awkwardly drawn. It seems.
Right. And
I felt more and more as we went along. I felt the artist kind of letting the story down in these issues.
But there was an interesting dialogue about her kind of dealing with that issue of this like
Right.
super hot woman being laid out on their couch, which I thought was entertaining, but the art wasn't quite there for it.
Yeah.
The one time you can really honestly, for story reasons, complain that a character wasn't drawn hot enough.
Right. Hey, hot characters have their place.
And they missed the ball here.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, it's interesting because everybody in this comic is neither good looking nor bad looking, but which is
Yeah.
different from your average comic in that way, I suppose. This also brings up, as I think about it, like there's interesting things about his domestic life here, and then it pretty much has to get dropped as the plot gets going.
right.
And it feels like, as of issue 16, which is as far as I've gotten, that I see a pattern of sort of conflicting urges in the writer,
Okay.
which maybe I should discuss more as we get along. But this is one example where there's an interesting story of the domestic life of a superhero, but then it kind of has to get thrown away for 2 or 3 issues as we go off and do something else. And
Yeah. I think that's pretty
develop other
standard.
subtexts.
But right.
It's like too many subtexts in a way.
yeah.
At least for too many subtexts for the way Morrison's writing. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that I feel like a lot of writers nowadays would handle this stuff more successfully, perhaps. Mesh all the different themes. Although many writers would not even now.
So, right after the last issue, the Vixen and Animal Man buddy get teleported away. And
Right. Very dramatically. Their bodies get removed piece
Right.
by piece.
And then
And,
they're just kind of, it looks like they're on the African plains. But
I just wanted to show before that the end of
Oh,
this
yeah.
issue where they're teleported away. We just see these aliens appear, looking kind of pleased with themselves or something. And there's we don't know where they are or anything. It says we take charge now. And then we end up on the African plain at the beginning of the next issue.
Well, and so what happens essentially is his powers get fixed. Like this whole thing they've been building up forever,
Right.
and it's just kind of
Well, and we see them fixing his powers.
right.
Only the text in the flashback is scrambled. they show a flashback scene of his origin and it's scrambled.
Yeah.
And that ties into later with that's still the. I don't think you need to use the. Oh, you need them as a microphone, I guess.
And we get the helmet of Bwana Beast.
Is that in this issue? I forgot.
It's right after the African safari thing. Like he pops out, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm great again." And
Oh,
then
you're
like
right.
2 pages later, there's the helmet right there.
Right, the helmet's sitting inside of Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
But that seems to be just his teaser for a few issues later, right? They don't actually find the helmet at this point in this
Right.
issue. Our Vixen and Animal Man don't find the helmet.
They don't.
They just confront Muhammad Ali's henchmen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so how did you see this? We might as well, in a sense, talk about these two, the next two. This issue with Muhammad Ali has a. It's really one story, these two issues. It has a cliffhanger. They're about to be killed by Muhammad Ali's animal woman. He says she has similar powers to them.
Well, before we jump to him, I feel like we need to talk about this tank.
The great penis tank of the Kilimanjaro.
Right? Why?
I think the artist was bored or something.
The build up, 2 panels of and then bam, like that is
Right. That is so obvious.
So villainous.
But then what does it do? Because then the next tank we see
Just-
looks like a giant alligator or crocodile or dinosaur.
Yeah, it disappears, I think. It is so random. It's baffling. Baffling is what
Right.
it is. But there's a moment where Vixen is eating meat essentially by the campfire as Animal Man.
Says he's a vegetarian.
Yeah, and
Oh, and he feels some lust for her.
right, and then the giant alligator tank pops up and it says "Thank you, God," because you can tell he's
The giant penis tank should have popped up at that point. That would have been
Right?
much more appropriate.
It would have then there would be a connection, and it would have
This giant penis would have served a purpose. Just want everyone to see it again.
so bizarre.
No wonder the artist was having trouble getting laid. He just didn't know where to put his tank.
But yeah, they get taken out by the ape dude and his African lady mask-wearing
Right.
henchman.
There's
Henchwoman.
no explanation why Muhammad Ali looks like a white ape. Is he a character? Do you have any knowledge of him as a character anywhere else?
No, I thought they were maybe trying to play off of that guy who became
Vandal
a monkey.
Savage?
Yeah,
Oh.
in the previous.
Oh,
One that-
Bwana Beast. Like maybe there was a connection to Bwana Beast, but there doesn't seem to be any.
Right.
This Muhammad Ali guy looks like a white monkey. He wears a whatever you call those Arab robes with the hat, and he's lived for nearly forever, and he has some evil scheme that he's digging a hole for.
Look, ancient apes always are up to no good. They're
Right.
just purely villainous.
He doesn't seem to have any powers of his own. He just has this henchwoman who has animal powers.
Yeah, I don't know. So Animal Man and Vixen are captured and they have to mull over their last moments of life before they come in to kill them. Because supervillains need to give them time to talk, I guess. I don't claim to understand.
Right. Yeah. Why does they? It's just total. It's like something out of Batman '66 or something. They just, you're going to die soon. We're going to leave you alone in this room, just so we can have a cliffhanger. And now we're back, and we're going to kill you. But it was kind of fun how Animal Man defeated them by imitating bacteria and self-replicating really fast.
Right? Yeah, which was
You could
weird.
play with all sorts of ideas about what happens when different versions of yourself are killed. But they apparently just magically disappeared later. He said, "Oh, I can feel that they've all gone away now." Which was
Right, but
convenient.
he had that whole multiple man thing going, and that was a super interesting idea, but it also really makes you think about the like limits of his power, and all of a sudden he's infinitely more powerful than he was before.
Right.
Um,
I guess it's all a matter of how he can figure out how to use his animal powers.
right.
But also, he was just fixed and made more powerful by the aliens or the other dimensional beings.
That's true. So the
But
mythical limits were lifted, I guess. I don't.
I mean, at this point, I feel like Grant Morrison is using the superheroics just, as Batman 66 style camp. It doesn't have to make sense. I'm just using it to get to my other point about continuities and shifting realities. But even then, the shifting reality thing is solved in just sort of a Deus Ex Machina way. Just put on these hand things and think really hard and remember, and you'll fix the continuity.
Right. And I don't know. It's a clever way to get out of the problem, though. So I'm for it. It's one of those things again where it's just clever enough for me to accept it.
Right. And the artist did an okay job on those parts. I still think if the art were stronger, it would have given all of it more impact. But I enjoyed the continual return to his origin with the dialogue changing.
Mm.
Now it's all like hip 80s dude and I mean, what the hell was that? It was like stuff was all just happening, whereas before we got like a 1960s way of describing, or a 1950s way of describing it. And then we got the jumbled up version of it. So I guess I do read this in the context of it being 1988. And I feel an excitement from it in that sense of, sure, somewhere in comics history, like I know, for instance, Will Eisner's done things like this, but in the superheroes of the day, this feels kind of exciting that they're solving a problem this way by fixing continuities.
Yeah. I really like the moment where Vix and him walk into the room. There's all these masks that have like the animal powers like imbued in the masks. Right. And their way of dealing with it, like Animal Man doesn't know what to do, and she says, "Oh, we'll just plant a bomb," where they got the bomb.
Right.
But
always keep bombs in your skin tight outfit.
Oh, always. Who knows where she's hiding it? It's just funny though because I guess it's part of her belt.
She does have a belt. You're right.
When she takes it off and pulls the part out. But he says, a bomb, I never would have thought of that. And she said, with the same reason why you were able to think of the amoeba thing earlier. And it was just this cool little character moment about how these two people have like the same skill set essentially, but the way that they go about doing this is so different. And I really liked that.
It is really nice to have him have another hero to play off of. I really liked the moment, which again now might seem a bit Grant Morrison cliche, but where the higher beings erase Muhammad Ali from the continuity, and he literally gets undrawn. Here's the gesture drawing, and then the light sketch, and then the more detailed and the ink version, and so going in reverse, he's being undrawn.
Never to be.
That's really fun. But suddenly, so I'm just thinking, reading along, we get to this issue. We're now for sure in a world where everything is inside a comic book and is not real and can be changed at the will of its creators at any moment.
Yeah, so you have to let anything go.
And then the next issue is this powerful, brutal statement about apartheid in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it kind of weird to have just been told all of this is just comic books that can be erased, and then do your intense political comic book about reality, about a real situation? You know, with Desmond Tutu in it under another name.
Right. Where are we? Sorry, I'm finding the comic that we're talking about now. And
Yeah,
there we
sorry.
are.
That's issue 13.
Mhm.
It's the return of Bwana Beast. It
The
has this
return,
cover.
the hotly anticipated return of
Everyone
a fan
wants Bwana
favorite.
Beast. And I guess this is where, I mean, I'm certainly anti-apartheid, and I thought it was an interesting issue, but I find it disconcerting.
Shocking politics.
Thank God that Animal Man did eventually get rid of apartheid in South Africa.
Right.
Or Bwana Man eventually got rid of apartheid.
Well, together, you see
Yes.
a black or a white man and a white man, and a black man eventually getting together ended this African problem. No
Well,
problem.
and I do think Grant Morrison was saying, hey, well, in DC Comics, there's always been this white hero named Bwana Beast who's worshipped by the black man and controls all animals in Africa. Let's make him black again. So I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, and he did mention that he believed he was only the second white man to have the
Right.
title.
So in a very different way, he's fixing another, a politically incorrect continuity problem.
Right, which, yeah. Normally I'm not as worried about it, but I think in this case, yeah, the super African character should...
Especially the fact that he's worshipped like a god by the native Africans.
And not to say that there aren't white people in Africa, but...
True.
Jeez.
But I think the implication is, and the history of fiction like that is a white man who's in Africa being thought to be some godlike being by the local tribesmen.
Right.
And it's pretty amazing / shocking to see apartheid gone at so directly, with torture and misinformation given to the media and all of that. It was very incongruous to me because I was just in the mood of, hey, all of this is fake comic booky stuff, and now you want to preach to me about the real world.
Right. It feels like this comic kind of has 3 modes, where there's the super serious message stuff, though normally animal rights, and they kind of tie that even to the apartheid deal.
Right.
Yeah.
So animal rights and apartheid kind of go together.
And then
real world problems.
Right. And then we have the super metatextual stuff, like what we just read with the character being unwritten and the self-awareness of the whole deal. And then you just have standard superhero fare slipped in there every now and again. And it's just
but also the domestic life of a superhero, which seems fairly new at this point also. I mean, you could argue that Marvel did that quite a bit, but this is like at a different level of the domestic life of a superhero.
Right. The part I didn't get at the end was the bit about the snaps. With Animal Man bringing it to, I guess this is Perry White. I've never seen Perry White
Somehow
look like...
Animal Man knew that they took the real photographs away from the white informant.
Right.
I mean, I would think maybe they jailed the white informant, but maybe they just took the photos away from him. And somehow Animal Man maybe turned into a worm or something and grabbed the real photos out of the... You'd think they would have just destroyed the real negatives, but...
I don't know. They just dropped this page at the end of this issue, and I was just so...
When was Perry White ever a really fat, bald guy with a mustache?
Right? That can...
I don't remember any version of Perry White looking like
Everything about this page is just wrong.
Right. I don't think the artist checked anywhere what Perry White was supposed to look like.
You got the Daily Planet thing right?
Yeah, and it says Perry White in reverse on his door, but...
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the alternate universe Perry White.
I can't remember when apartheid finally fell, and no doubt things still are troubled in a country like South Africa, but I feel like it fell sometime in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because of this issue.
Yeah. Then there was this issue 14, Spooks.
Right. Which brings back this mysterious figure that we saw for one panel 2 or 3 issues ago. 3 issues ago.
Right. And apparently the children are confusing that for their father.
Well, and he makes a comment. You can't even hear me. I can't even warn you. Oh, Maxine, which makes it seem like this is some. Well, my first guess, pretending I don't sort of know where Morrison is heading, is that it's an Animal Man from the future.
Right. Well, because he has the buzz cut, which comes
Right.
into play later.
But I'm also wondering if he's an Animal Man from an alternate continuity.
Days of Future Animal Man.
And we get more weird stuff with this guy, this physicist, but he still doesn't meet Animal Man or anything. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
This whole issue just kind of blew by me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's trying to put in place various elements that he wants to play with sometime down the road, not in any of the issues we read.
Yeah.
Although I guess we're getting near our little run. Yeah, like there was this guy who comes to the door and kills some woman and her daughter.
Because they weren't religious was the implication I got.
Right.
And then
And that was, he doesn't come back, does he, in any of the issues we read?
not thus far. And then the children are playing with a Ouija board, and then some
Right.
drink explodes, and
And
they think it's a
someone has
ghost.
written Cliff 927, which is that's a date on the calendar later, I guess. September 27th. But other than that, I don't see what it's about. Yeah, it's a very mysterious issue.
Yes.
And then Buddy Baker meets the same ghostly version of himself from some other reality or the future, and he says, I remember you from when I was 10. I know you. And then 927 is written in the rain in the window, and that's the end of the story.
Woo-hoo.
None of it made sense, did it?
No, not
I
yet.
kind of was reading along, assuming it all made sense, and I got to the end and I said, ooh, look, issue 15, and I just went on to issue 15 without thinking about it.
Yeah, it's pretty much where I was. That issue just didn't hit me. Maybe it should have. Maybe with the rereading after going through the run, it will
The whole
yield
run,
more. But
But so, again,
Keep
I'm
talking.
sort of imagining Grant Morrison feeling he can take more and more risks to do an issue that makes no sense when you read the issue, but will make sense at some point in the future. Now, when we read Grant Morrison, we say, oh, well, it's Grant Morrison. I'll probably understand it by the time we get to the end of the series. But no one knew that then. So that seems very risky.
yeah, well, that issue would have put me off if I was reading it that way back in the day. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't even know if I think I may have missed some of these issues. Because again, I mean, there were some stories that were very tight stories that you felt like you had to read every issue, but I still felt back then that you could sort of pick up issues and skip issues and you'd be fine.
right.
So I was used to not worrying about picking up every issue of a comic then. Probably because I was trained that way from newsstands where you couldn't find every issue anyway.
Right. This issue unintentionally hit me as very hilarious. The dolphin issue.
Well, see, there I don't know. Is that how? I mean, because this, like the apartheid issue, is about brutal violence, but this time against dolphins.
Right.
Are there
This is
really- Is there really I know the Faroe Islands are a real place, and I forget if they're in Europe or somewhere else. But I have no idea if they have a custom of having a festival where they just butcher dolphins for fun and rip fetuses out of mother dolphins.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I know this was around the time where fishing was one of the big ecological issues, and dolphin treatment was a big issue, and this was a way to connect to it. What's funny to me about it, though, is now we understand dolphins and their behaviors a lot better, and then treating them as these noble creatures that have, you know, a soulmate and all that is hilarious, because it turns out dolphins pretty rapey. And
But in any case, we we have worked hard to not kill dolphins incidentally while hunting other kinds of fish.
Right.
And
nor
that's
should
what
we.
I always thought was the problem. I didn't know there were people who like to just butcher dolphins for fun. But since he sets it in a real place, I don't
mean,
know if he has his facts. It's
don't-
pretty horrific.
There's always some horror stories. There might have been some horror story of it, but I don't think it was like a cultural deal. I think this was just for the comic. But I mean, there's definitely issues with
For those
hunting
who
dolphins.
haven't read it,
Time was a big issue, but I don't think it was a vindictive thing. I think it was more of an ease of catching fish, and dolphin got caught in the nets, and what are you
Right.
going to do but slice it up and make it?
But for those who haven't read it, Grant Morrison in this issue says that on the Faroe Islands, they have a festival every year where they just, I guess they know when the dolphins are traveling through, and they go out into the bay and they butcher as many dolphins as they can, as brutally as possible. It's just like, let's all go out. And it goes on and on. And he describes screaming, blades grinding against spines, people carving their names into the faces of terrified dolphins, hacking off the flukes for souvenirs. And then the children, the men cut fetuses from the bodies of pregnant dolphins and give them to the children to play with. I mean, that is pretty, pretty specific.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. A lot of apparently there's some pictures of some horrific things happening to dolphins, and I mean, I'm skimming this over. Basically, it says, you know, they kill dolphins and fish as a way to get their meat, pretty primarily, and that these pictures look pretty bad, and so like part of it's true, but there were some accounts of things being a bit harsher than any of the evidence actually points to, and so I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I can't read a whole novel about it while we're talking here.
Right.
But there was an issue with it, and
It looks like, though,
This-
just as I'm glancing at Wikipedia, that it was hunting, not just a festival of butchery.
right, this page
Yeah,
is
that's
actually
what I was-
pretty close to the photos that I found.
Oh, really?
So-
Wow.
Yeah, this is based on true events and dramatized, so very Hollywood. Come at it that way.
At the end of the Hamid Ali story, they walk through a field of dead minions of Hamid Ali, and Vixen says, "I guess the good guys won." I guess the good guys won, she says. And then at the end of this Faroe Island one, Animal Man drops the leader of the Faroe Island people into the ocean to drown. And expresses no regret for it whatsoever.
Right.
The man is rescued by a dolphin, and ironic. But what they don't mention is that the dolphin raped him, right? Because you said dolphins are rapey.
Yeah, well,
But,
apparently that doesn't happen.
So anyway, I thought it was an odd thing where it's an unusual, and I'm not so comfortable with the superhero who kills without even sort of giving it a second thought.
Well, I mean, yeah, this isn't Batman no kill rules. This is a superhero, but he's willing to put someone down. But this did seem a bit much, right? Like it wasn't a heat of the moment sort of thing. It wasn't because he had the guy flying by. I mean, he could have easily taken him to the authorities, had him locked up, put him on trial, any of that. He just dropped him in the ocean, and that's supposed to be that. But
And he says, "Give me one good reason not to drop you, you bastard." The guy
I'm
says,
afraid of
"I'm
heights."
afraid of heights." And he says, "I said one good reason," and then he drops him,
yeah,
and that's it. As far as
Well,
he
well-
knows, the guy's dead.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know. And I'm fine with the idea of Animal Man killing a villain every now and again, but this seemed a bit far, especially given the next issue.
Right. And just the whole idea of him as kind of this decent family man, or trying, struggling but decent family guy.
Right.
But I think he would have been happy to kill people in the apartheid story too. I don't know if he does kill anybody, but So it just seems, I don't know if it's Grant Morrison has any plan there, or he just never thought about superheroes and whether they kill or not, or under what circumstances they kill.
Right.
Because it's not like he's the Punisher, who has a very specific reason for being what he is.
Well, no, and he's feeling it out too as he goes. He's finding his own rules and his own balance because he's still relatively new to the whole thing. But
Right.
this issue did seem like it seemed very out of character that moment for
Right.
what we've read.
And then the next issue, we get a very light, fun. Some of the Justice League International have a romp in Paris issue, basically, with the Time Master.
Yeah, so this issue is a complete tonal change from where we were before. And so it starts off with the wife getting a book deal, and so they're going to Europe to celebrate. So you know nothing's going to go right there.
Right.
But what really caught me off guard was the elongated man and Sue Dibney talking and dealing with all that. And he's elongated man's being a goofball, and Sue Dibney's joking and thinking about
Joking about divorcing him.
right. And in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking of what was that event?
Which I never read. The one where does she get raped and killed or something?
Yeah,
And then they erase people's memories of it?
right. And it's this whole thing. And that's the only time I've really read these characters before. And I'm reading this now, and I'm like, what? I don't know. So that threw me.
I assume this comes from the era where the Justice League International was a very jokey book,
Right.
written by DeMatteis and Geffen. I don't know if it happens at the exact same time.
But it's clearly in that vein of things.
Right. And it seems like maybe Morrison was saying, hey, I'm going to make a nod. Now I've done all these weird issues. I'm going to make a nod to the superhero world, but I'm going to make it extra cartoony. But then with a little bit of a moral twist of the Time Master, Animal Man doesn't fight the Time Master, and they have a conversation where the Time Master, just says, you guys are all picking on me, and I'm not doing anything wrong. And then Metamorpho clocks him. So Animal Man is vaguely having some moral moment about wondering who the bad guys and the good guys are. But he doesn't seem worried about it afterwards.
He doesn't at all. And, well, it's this whole back and forth about, like, Metamorpho being this gruff character, apparently, even though he starts off super goofy, like, I fell asleep in the shape of a chair, like, what the...
Right.
Yeah, this Time Master's clearly loony, but he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to let people reconnect with their loved ones, whatnot. And clearly Animal Man sees that. Metamorpho doesn't, because he's causing problems, I guess, is the idea. It's so Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
Compared to...
Except for this thing at the end, where Metamorpho hits him. I mean, they've had this conversation where Time Master explains he's not a bad guy to Animal Man. Animal Man doesn't do anything, and Metamorpho comes along and slugs him and says, what's wrong? What did I do? I beat the bad guy, didn't I? That's what we're supposed to do, isn't it? What did I do? What did I do wrong? But that implies like a whole... Then you think, like I think back to some of those other things I talked about where Animal Man killed people or may have been involved in the killing of people.
Right.
And he had no pause about it. But now he's having pause about punching out and sending back to the psychiatric hospital this crazy supervillain.
Right, which really isn't even all that bad. Like, they punch out the guy causing problems, they can get him back where he needs to go.
Right.
Like, really, comparatively to just dropping a guy in the ocean, presumed for dead, that's far less. Maybe
it's this, and I hate to tag it this way, this liberal notion that was particularly popular in the 70s that crazy people weren't crazy. They just viewed the world differently, and we were imposing this idea of being insane upon them and sticking them in hospitals and stuff.
Well, I mean, clearly that's this character, but I don't know, if you messed up and put a dinosaur somewhere, presumably someone died, and if the French War is going, like the thing is like if you read
No,
this
but
comic,
time went backwards, and everything that the dinosaur did got erased.
but I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. Clocking him just doesn't sound that bad. Also, he's
Right.
clocked him. It's ironic. It's just desserts. It's poetry.
Right.
Come on.
So, well, it does. It seems like Morrison throws out these moral issues, but then doesn't deal with and creates other moral ambiguities that he doesn't deal with. And I think when Animal Man is merciless to someone who kills animals, in Morrison's mind, that's okay, and it's really not something to worry about. But someone who punches out a crazy man, claiming to be a superhero, doing it, that's a problem. I don't know.
We're filling out the morality as we go, definitely. But it's an interesting issue, and I mean, if you have different feelings and different opinions, I understand, but you have to give that, like, the tonal shift of this whole thing and the disparity between them is super bizarre, and I don't feel it was supposed to be that intentional. And that makes it more interesting in a way, I guess. No, it probably shouldn't.
It looks like there's kind of an interesting conversation going on in the comments. I'm not sure if I can completely follow it because it probably was responding to things we said a while ago. Comic Crack says to 64-page special, I'm assuming you've read the series. 64-page says, yep. And then he says it almost needs to be read backwards. Whoa, how very Gaspar Noé of Morrison. I don't know who Gaspar Noé is. And Gore Vidal says irreversible. And Comic Crack says that's the one. Evening GV, like evening. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what Gaspar Noé is. The idea that you should read Animal Man backwards is very interesting to me. I'm kind of dedicated to reading it forwards now.
Well, yeah, well, there. So at the end of the last panel of the last comic we read, there's this crazy preacher guy who showed up before and killed those people.
Oh, does he show up again? I forgot.
He's just in the last panel eyeing them.
Outside their window in Paris?
Yep.
He was in suburban America a while ago. Now he's in Paris taking notes about them or something?
Yeah. Just randomly, hey, he's watching him. So...
Well, Morrison really plays the long game. I mean, there's that character, this physicist who shows up every now and then to mysteriously talk about things, the ghost of some other version of Animal Man who's been showing up. So
here we go. They were talking about some movie Irreversible and things told in reverse, and you people in your crazy European films.
There's some great science fiction where the story is told in reverse too. But anywho, now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Well, at this point, I mean, we know that this becomes considered a classic series, but at this point, this looks like it could be a classic series or a classic mess.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I'm still enjoying the hell out of it. I just
me too. Yeah, I don't mean to totally put it down.
But yeah, it doesn't
just
feel like
things working against each other in a way.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as well put together as a lot of other Vertigo stuff I've read, even compared to like Hellblazer. It's not quite on that level.
Right.
But it's certainly worth reading and going through it. I'm finding it interesting, and it's good to have the motivation to talk about. But it is not. Right. It is not a crafted tale.
Right. Well, and again, it's just me and my perceptions of things, but I viewed early Morrison as an interesting sideshow to the more important comic book writers of the time, namely Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, and a few others.
Whoever those guys are.
but there's something readable about most of these issues that makes you want to keep reading. We both kind of had trouble stopping at 16, but we'd agreed to stop at 16.
Right. Which is a
I'm
good
kind
sign.
of dreading 17 because it does look like an animal rights one again.
I was kind of excited for that. Also, I like the sad
Uh-huh.
little monkey. I thought that was.
I got very upset very upset reading the apartheid one and reading the dolphin one. Both of those really
The
worked on
dolphin
my
one was just
emotional-
unintentionally funny to me. I just also the fact that there was the character dolphin who's this beautiful woman, so we're supposed to associate
right.
the dolphin's plight with this beautiful woman. I was like, oh, that's subtle.
Right. Well, if you took out the stomach churning reality of how they cut up dolphins, you would have kind of a 1970s kind of story. Superhero versus local hicks, basically.
Right.
And it was played at that level. It wasn't. None of this is written or very little of this is written at a very subtle level. It still has that Bronze Age feel, except that it's bringing in all these elements that aren't so common in the Bronze Age. And officially, the Bronze Age is over at this point. But I feel the Bronze Age lived on in many comic books for quite a while longer.
All right. Well, did you have any more on this, or kind of burn through what we had?
I've kind of spent my thoughts. I guess we went more quickly through this than the first 6 issues or 8 issues.
Yeah, well, we're kind of in the middle, and there's only, I mean, really, so many of the issues kind of
Right.
wrapped into each other, and
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being a little more expedient. Yeah. Do
I
you
mean,
have anything
I remain
else?
extremely glad that I bought this entire collection and that I have it all together rather than reading it digitally like you or whatever. It's definitely something I'll probably read yet again after we've talked about it in a year or two.
If I read it again, I'll probably bother to purchase a physical copy. But for now, I'm happy reading it digitally. Honestly, it didn't bug me as much as it was, though I'm getting really fed up with my crappy tablet. But that's a different story.
Uh-huh. Now, is yours in an app where it goes panel to panel, or are you just reading page by page on your tablet?
I read page by page.
Okay.
So there's that. If I had to
Is
read
that-
panel by panel, I'd shoot
panel to-
someone.
The panel can work quite well on this more old-fashioned stuff and a reading experience.
I could.
You talking about when you read?
You're cutting out.
Did I cut it out? I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you were saying something about reading panel to panel and the experience of that.
Well, I'm just saying. I personally find I can enjoy a comic one way and then another way. And one way to enjoy it digitally is that panel to panel. It makes it a very different reading experience because you don't see what's coming in the next panel.
That's
and you're very
fair.
focused.
I am not as open-minded, and I'm completely against that. I feel the page is very important to what makes a comic book a
Right.
comic book. And if I'm not seeing the page, I'm against it. So I
But
need
you know-
it displayed that way.
A lot of this could work panel to panel, I think, because it's not a very fancy layout.
I'm sure it would be fine, and you're right. Most of it's more or less the grid or the broken grid.
Yeah.
But I think it could work if you can stomach that. If I see that, I get mad, so I have to have the page. Otherwise, I would have just bought the physical. I would not stand for that. I cannot read in that sort of a setting.
While I don't like the style of Chaz Turag, I have to say that he's a very good storyteller. So I almost just would like some really incredibly good inker to go over his work or something. So the storytelling in the panel to panel, like this stuff with the clock, was extremely good, and it's always well told. The action is well told. It's just that the atmosphere is not well done, or sometimes the atmosphere is not well done. And one of his very best panels is kind of this mediocre scenery shot of Paris. but there's not a whole lot of detail in there at all, and you just barely feel like you're in Paris.
I mean, some of the backgrounds could use some more work, but
I wonder about
overall I
this
appreciate it.
Vertigo line. I wonder if they really underpaid these artists, because Vertigo is well known for a lot of bad art, and maybe they were putting all their money in these imported British writers and make artists with a low page rate.
Possibly. I don't, I mean, I know the art isn't the greatest, but I find it serviceable enough, and it conveys most of it. We had some poignant complaints.
Right, it's serviceable, and I'm saying he is a good storyteller. It needs more atmosphere, in my opinion. Panel like this is a typical panel of people's faces, and it's just very to me.
Very
Very yeah. Have you been reading other stuff since we last talked?
I mean, I had a big week this week, so it took me some time to plow through that, and read a little more of Irredeemable, but that's pretty much it this week.
And are you still feeling like Irredeemable is too stretched out and all of that?
It's a mess. Yeah, I haven't read enough to really have any new opinions or anything. There's just a few moments that just kind of caught me, and I still need to finish it, and it's so long for no reason. I don't know. Were you reading anything else?
I've been reading a lot, trying to, well, not as much as I have a box like this full of comics that came out in the last few weeks. So I caught up on that about that. I've been reading a lot with my daughter. We read Marvel's comics that are based on Disney rides, like Big Thunder Mountain and Figment, and she liked those a lot. I thought they were okay. What else have I read lately? Right now, I can't even think of it. What it's been. I caught up with Birthright, and I'm still really digging Birthright. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm blanking.
Birthright, that's one of the ones I have sitting around that I should dig into. I just need to plow through some stuff that I can start chopping down chunks of my to-read list.
Oh, I read the first 2 issues of Charles Soule's Daredevil.
Ho, what you think of that?
And knowing that you hated it kind of set me up for the discontinuity between it and Wade's Daredevil. And so I loved Wade's Daredevil, and I don't love this, but I thought it was kind of cool, and it was very Batman-like. And there have been times when people have purposely done Daredevil like Batman and thought of Daredevil as Marvel's Batman. And I kind of liked the almost black and white art. So I guess I'm on board for this new Daredevil. It's a different comic book. It's a different hero, basically.
Yeah.
Seemingly a more conservative hero, just being a public prosecutor rather than defender. I was kind of bugged by the whole thing of somehow he's made everyone forget about it, and only Foggy knows about him.
Right.
I'm just worried about that, and what kind of hand-wavium they're going to seem reasonable.
Yeah, it's just going to be a hand wave. There's no two ways around that.
I like this 10-finger villain. It really is extremely different from Mark Waid's.
Yeah, I don't mind that it's different from Mark Waid's. I mind that it just kind of jumped ship without... If it's just going to jump ship to a new thing, that's fine, but there's so much tied to what happened prior that they're still kind of digging at. It's just, I didn't like that balance, and it just irks me. I'm probably just going to end up dropping it.
As they go forward and try to connect it to the past, that might be where they fall over their feet.
Right.
But if you think, I mean, it really was. It really could makes me want this to man.
You
Man
cut out
training
again.
a new Rob, crazy religious cult. Told you and was given. Most people heard my voice at that particular moment. Anyway, I was just going on about how good of a Batman comic it is.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. Batman's another comic that I'm getting pretty fed up with. So it's all just hitting a vein.
I had already read Spawn when we last spoke, right?
A little bit, yeah. You picked up that one issue that was hard to find. And...
Well, I read 2 issues.
Okay.
I found the 2 issues of the... And it's just... I mean, the first issue was this fun, wordless battle. It was nothing but that. But clearly from the second issue that I've read now, there's almost no plot. Although it's kind of good that I can pick it up after 25 years of not reading Spawn and understand everything, it also feels weird that he has no richness or background seeming to him.
I think
Maybe
they're not touching on it, but...
Maybe, yeah. But I am loving the artwork. I'd forgotten that how much or maybe I've never... Because I think it's Larson with McFarlane inking him. And I've never seen that before, and that's very pleasing, actually.
Yeah, it looks pretty. I don't know. I'm good to hold back for now on more Spawn. I still have a pile to
maybe
read.
you've filled up on Spawn.
Well, I have a pile to read yet, and I kind of want to read through that. And there's a few highlights of Spawn that I've heard about that I want to push through before I go forward.
Right. Had I mentioned how much I loved Swamp Thing?
I didn't even know that came out. No.
Oh, this was, the Swamp Thing mini by Len Wein.
Right.
And art by Kelly Jones. And it's totally cheesy and silly, really. And it used all the 1970s style or 1960s style heavy captions explaining exactly what you're seeing and trying to do poetic language. But somehow, I think if there were a lot of comics like this, I would get bored of it quickly. But as a one-off retro with this great art, I'm really loving the Swamp Thing. I think it says 1 of 6. It's just 6 issues. I'd love to see more Kelly Jones in general in the mainstream comics. Were you reading Nameless?
No, I gave up after the first issue.
I completely did not understand the ending, but I loved the art.
All right.
And Fade Out, are you reading that?
Nope.
I'll probably say that to talk about it in some other video.
Yeah, that one, I don't know. I gave up on the whole Brubaker.
You tried it and gave up on it?
Well, I gave up after Fatale. I just...
Ah.
I don't know.
So I went back and I read the first trade of Criminal, and I definitely like their style now much more than when they first started Criminal anyway.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I've been hearing more that the Fade Out's one of their best.
For me,
so
it doesn't rely as much on plotting at all. It's much more about character, and I really liked it that way.
Yeah, I could appreciate that a bit more. I just I don't know. What did I pick up? Did you read American Alien?
No, I hate that guy so much that I'm not buying his comics, but I'll probably read it after the fact someday.
Yeah, I liked this issue. It's actually not. It's not a huge deal, and it's Superman posing as Bruce Wayne as a playboy on a ship for a while, and it's just kind of a fun story to blaze through. I don't know. I think American Alien's a fun comic, and
he looks
better
like
than
what's his name? Pet Detective. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective on the cover there.
all right. Yeah.
Terrence has the gall to say Kelly Jones doesn't cut it for me anymore. He's rough. I think Terrence, I'm divorcing you as a friend. I love that Kelly Jones art.
Well, I see where he's coming from on this, though, but yeah. Oh.
On the Swamp Thing, you haven't even read it. How can you say you see what he's coming from?
Oh, I thought it was Jones on this. Do I have the wrong Jones?
No, Kelly Jones is the guy on the Swamp Thing. I don't know. Oh, Joel Jones is on that one.
Yes. Sorry, too many Jones.
I don't want to see Joelle Jones working for DC. I want to see her do more of Lady Killer or other independent projects.
All right.
That's a weird thing, seeing people become now kind of famous for their indie comics and then do little star turns over at DC or Marvel for a little bit before going back to their indie comics. Or like the woman from Saga doing Archie for a few months.
Yeah, well,
And I have a feeling that Saga took a longer break so that she could do Archie.
very possibly, but I mean, I imagine the pay's right and it ups her profile, which helps them overall. So,
But Saga is one of the best-selling comic books. It sells way better than Archie. It's not upping her profile; it's upping Archie's profile. Hopefully, they paid her a huge amount.
I mean, I think that's a dual thing right now. I mean, her having done Archie, plus I'm sure she wanted to do that. So, and also it probably does good to give her a break from Saga to go do this other project, let her stretch her creative muscles and come back to it. The time apart, and all that.
I think if you look at trade sales, probably Walking Dead and then Saga probably reached the widest audience, bigger than Batman or the X-Men. Maybe not bigger than those Star Wars comics.
Yes, but on another hand, I mean, when you're talking famous comic characters, Archie's about as big as Superman or Batman. So, I don't know.
Famous, but no one reads them. I mean, their regular issues sell like 6,000 copies or something, and maybe with Fiona and Mark Waid on it, they sell 40,000, but they still don't sell as well as Saga.
Maybe it's just the love of the game. I don't know.
It probably is. But I worry about people getting seduced away from their indie comics. Anyway, I'm very
For 3
into
issues though.
3
Nice.
issues wasn't too big of a deal. Hopefully, it won't happen again.
We've seen it before, where independent creators get pulled onto the Marvel DC circuit and they never quite come back, and it can be good or bad.
Right.
Wade was one of those creators. He went off and did Boom and a whole bunch of other things, and then he basically got sucked right back into Marvel and DC after pulling away in a big way.
Right. But I don't think he had big hits at Boom.
Well, Irredeemable apparently was big, despite
Well, it was
my.
critically acclaimed. Did it sell well? I guess I assumed it didn't.
It went on for 10 trades. It wasn't selling poorly. I mean,
It might have sold well for Boom in the pre-indie boom.
yeah.
Yeah, that was difficult to say, but
Maybe. Maybe. Have you been picking up the best Batman comic of late?
the best one.
Yeah.
I lost your audio for a second. What?
The best Batman comic. Have you been picking it up?
Are you talking about Batman 66? What are you talking
No, I'm talking about Batman Ninja Turtles, clearly.
about? Oh. No, I'm going to buy that in dollar bins or 50-cent bins.
God. Oh. This is so good. And it's so the best Batman comic going
Really?
right now. Oh, hands down.
So, better than Batman and Robin Eternal?
Yes, and that's actually high praise, I'd say, because I've
Yes.
really been enjoying Batman Robin and Turtle, but I don't think of that as a Batman book.
So, I mean, if you are seriously telling me I should jump on this, I can probably still get the 2 issues that have come out so far.
Well, if your shop's going to have it for 50 cents in 2 months, wait the 2
No, they
months.
probably won't have it for 50 cents for a few years, or I don't know.
Oh, geez.
Often my local shop will have like issue 2 in the dollar bin because they over ordered, or they have a lot of Marvels and current Marvels in the dollar bin because of all the variants variant covers they order or something.
You will not enjoy it as much as I do, but I think you'd appreciate.
Yeah, I sort of assumed that from the get-go, which is why I didn't pick it up. But it does seem like I'm not getting enough books with Batman in it. I mean, some weeks I only have 3 Batman books to read.
Man, I don't know. It's been bad. I've noticed a lot of my pull recently is DC, and I want to pull back, but I'm pretty happy where I'm at with DC. So
I don't know. In my mind, it's better to support DC than Marvel, but I just see Marvel as more the evil corporate company right now, even though both of them are evil corporations.
I don't want to get too much of either, and I'd rather get more independent, but I find myself going more and more trade with the independent because it's so much more rewarding that way. So,
right, it's all written for the trade.
Oh, there's that too. But there's some books I wouldn't want to go away from. Like, I want to get every issue of Saga. I want to get every issue of Chew, you know. Whereas a lot of the Marvel DC stuff, I do like getting the issues a fair amount. So,
right. Well, I was watching Yoakum Comic Center's video on his deluxe edition of Saga.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, oh, I want that. These tiny little floppies. I could have this huge, massive skull crusher of a deluxe size book.
He buys everything in the big, oversized whatever, so he can just have those shelves, those glorious looking shelves of. I don't
it's
understand.
A great way to own it. I mean, I think I'm loving Animal Man more for having the large size, and strangely, that Animal Man is the one book of theirs of DC's that actually has good binding. I don't know why their others don't.
Well, and the pages don't run up, so you can actually have gutters. You're not going to have the gutter loss.
Right. You wouldn't get gutter loss on these, but it still lays flat. Whereas on Multiversity has all kinds of double page spreads, but it doesn't lay flat.
Huh.
Anyway, maybe we should end the hangout.
Fair enough.
I really appreciate all the people who've listened or watched. J-Rox is out there. Gore Vidal, Comic Crack. There's someone else. 64 page special. The man who should be making videos, or we often seem to wish
he should be on here. He always has better comments than anything we're saying. I don't know.
He knows much more than we do.
Undeniably.
Okay. Sorry, what?
I said undeniably.
Maybe you know more about turtles than he does. I don't know. I haven't tested him on that.
So. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we'll be back next week with another batch.
Oh, that evil Comic Crack. He gets 0 DC comics.
Fair enough.
And 64 page special is not an expert on Ninja Turtles, I guess.
He's lying.
I am completely divorcing Comic Crack, and I'm getting a good lawyer. You're not getting any of my comics.
It's the nose.
Okay.
Okay, well, farewell.
Hail Satan and good night.
There you go. Good night.